Hello and welcome to The Confident Commit, the podcast for anyone who wants to join the conversation on how to deliver software better and faster.
If you're looking to build a trusted ship, tune in, let's confidently commit.
You're listening to episode 12 of season 2. I'm your host, Rob Zuber, CTO of CircleCI, industry leader in all things CI and CD. And today I have with me Thomas Hazel, founder and CTO of ChaosSearch. Thomas, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Rob. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We almost had the episode without hitting record because we got into so many interesting topics. So hopefully we can keep that going. Otherwise, we'll have to go dig that up and tack it on the end. But to get started, I'd love to get, just have you give us a quick overview of ChaosSearch and the problem you're trying to solve, because I think it exposes a bunch of really fascinating questions, at least for me, in sort of the evolution of software and systems. But give us that quick recap so that we can build from it.
Yeah, so ChaosSearch uniquely goes after big data analytics. If you know me, I love solving wonderfully hard computer science problems, hard tech problems, and I like to say I like to crack codes to hopefully make things easier, simpler, and more cost effective. And so what we've done is we transform cloud object storage like Amazon S3, GCS from Google, et cetera, and we transform into an analytical database. So you take all the benefits of the data lake, stream data in easy, simply, but we automate the process of indexing and ultimately providing access to it, whether it's search, Elastic API, SQL, et cetera, ML use cases. So, but we go after big data scale, and you can think of marrying log analytic use cases, BI analytic, predictive analytic, all in one service. But here's the key thing. It's your cloud storage. You own the data. We just unlock that data, but again, at scale. So if you're dealing with a terabyte up in data per day, we're a perfect fit. Small data, small problems. Big data, big problems.
Well, so that's the fork that I think we're all kind of at, right? Like I find that I still solve most of my most complex problems, with Excel or something. Like, what's the small view of this that I can go actually reason about? And the fork being, do we manage and curate data in a way that makes it possible for us to reason about as humans, or do we? I kind of want to call it throw in the towel and accept that, this data is coming in massive volumes and in volumes that we will never really be able to comprehend. And we're just going to hand over control to the robots, which is maybe a super extreme way of expressing it. But I mean, does it feel like that moment you call out like big data versus small data? No one actually knows where the line is between those two things, right? We know that Excel sheet's probably small and, terabytes a day is probably big, but where's the line? Are we trying to manage it, or are we sort of saying, you know what, it's better if we just let it go and build tools to accept that eventuality?
Yeah, well said. Here's the thing for me is that if you're throwing data away, if you're using some kind of tool or service to curate or AI to determine what you care about, how often do you have security issues or things in the future that, I wish I had access to that? And so my philosophy is, here, maybe say it like this, you go to the doctor and you say, hey, doctor, my arm hurts. And the doctor says, well, don't move your arm, right? My viewpoint is, no, you fix the problem, right? I mean, so working around things is really the issue. So here at ChaosSearch, I said, what's the problem? It's the computer science. It's the architecture. And so my viewpoint is you want access to all your data when you need it. And when you take the data out, you lose insights, you lose security insights. And so my viewpoint is throwing data away, it's going to land yourself into trouble. How many times I've talked to people in IT where if they knew or if they had access to, or it's a week or a month to set up to get access to, is a real problem. It has a real risk to the organization. So my philosophy was, let's crack some codes. Let's make that data accessible, easy, at scale, cost effective. And so I don't know, don't shy away from the problem. Run right at it and go for it.
So I think that's totally valid. And I think, those examples are great ones, right? If I had access to this data, that we filtered out because, storage costs or network transfer or whatever it might have been that said, you know what, this is too much. And certainly we've gotten past the my relational database won't hold it perspective.
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm kind of interested in the name though, and maybe I'm overreading it. We use chaos for chaos engineering and all these other things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in terms of search, it feels like you're implying that notion that like this is unmanageable at this point. We're just throwing everything into giant buckets. Nobody knows what it is. Of course it's going to be chaotic. Like we've gotten past complex to this natural point of just it's out of control and there's no way we're getting it back. Is that what you were striving at with the name, or am I totally overreading
No,
it?
no, you're not reading into it at all. I mean, think about it. Data at scale is always chaotic. Accept it. It's like fuzzy logic. Like Amazon, think of all the hardware that they have. It always will fail, right? Data at scale is chaotic. Hardware at scale will fail. Embrace those core principles. And then what would you do around it? And so for me was, chaos was, okay, brace the chaos, right? Meaning that you need all this data. It's going to come in a variety of ways, unstructured, structured, semi-structured, and use that as a base principle to say, okay, if you accept that data is going to be complex, the 3 Vs, the 4 Vs, or whatever you want to call it, build a technology and architecture that embraces the chaos and assumes that you can provide access to, whether it's search, SQL, ML use cases, and do it in a way that is automated, that is simple, that's cost effective. So, searching the chaos or chaos search is, you think about it, how many times, there's so many great relational systems out there, but they all fall down because of the complexity of data ingestion, setting up the pipelines, changing schema, let alone scaling out. All those things are, oh, we won't do this, or we'll give up, or it's not worth it. My viewpoint is, it is worth it, but just really invert the idea of accept the chaos, accept those data streams, and create a technology that can receive it. And ultimately, where you really care about is searching the analysis of what you're looking for, or the aggregations of what you're trying to see, of the observability, et cetera, et cetera.
So I love that notion of accepting. And, we've been spending this season talking about learning from failure. And a lot of that is like we tried to do a thing and it didn't work, right? On a personal level or a team level. And accepting the case, like it feels like as a software engineering community, society, I don't know what to call it, we've been trying for a long time to manage data complexity, right? We talk about data quality all the time and cleaning pipelines and things like that. And maybe some of the times that we fail because the problem is actually just really, really hard. And is this sort of a lesson in saying we didn't fail because we tried the wrong thing? We failed because our whole framing was incorrect. Now, how do we take a different look at the problem and say, this isn't actually the failure. This is new information that says this is the right way to go about it. Like to be untamed, right? I guess for lack of a better expression, to let your data be chaotic. Now we need to go build a system that's capable of handling that.
No, well said. So, it's funny. I would say I had this idea 8 years ago, but really 6 years ago, I really went after it. And I saw all this data going to cloud storage, object storage, because it was cost effective, secure, reliable, elastic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they would move it out of it to do the analysis. They'd clean it, the ETL it, et cetera. And I said, well, what if you just leave it there? And everyone would say, well, you can't make backing store cloud object storage high performance, or you can't do this, you can't do search, you need Lucene, you can't do Relation, you need Parquet. And I said, well, what if you could crack that code? If you do a Snowflake query off a cold S3, because they store everything, it's very slow. Now, when it's cached, it's fast. But I said, what if the first query was fast? And so to me and you're alluding to this, is I think people just say it's impossible. And if you know me and know my career, I say, what's the hardest problem? What's the impossible? But if you could do it, everything changes. And when I was talking to the analysts, I guess maybe in 2016, 17, I said, hey, I think I'm going to transform cloud storage into a high performance database. They said, you're crazy. That makes no sense. Why would you ever do that? Well, now we see how important cloud storage is. I mean, we were the first movers in this space, and we're creating technology around it. It's one of those things where the obvious is so obvious until it's, or it's not obvious until it is obvious. And, the analogy I like to give is, a 18-wheeler is stuck underneath the overpass, and everyone's like, how are we going to get this 18-wheeler out of this overpass? And then a little girl says, why don't you just take the air out of the tires? It was so simple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but these are things that they're simple answers, but you have to believe that it's worth doing. And so at Chaos Search, we just say, okay, what's the best answer?
Mm-hmm.
And then go for it. So back to this chaos and trying and failure. Shoot, failure is not trying. Failure is not trying to go after it. Obviously we have to deliver product. We have investors that want to make revenue. So you have to always put it in a box of, you got to do what's right for the business. At the same time, Elon Musk, right, with SpaceX, they said high iteration, fail fast. And look at what they're doing so quickly because they said, we're going to fail. We're going to fail fast. Where, NASA originally said, we're going to try to do studies and figure things out. And there's some pros and cons to each side. But if you can fail fast and move forward, and that's the approaches that I know I've taken at my startups. This is my 6th startup. So, pushing the envelope, failing fast, learning, because really you do figure out something quickly. And the big companies, they're risk averse, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the risk of spending that time or that money to crack those codes? Maybe not.
Yeah. I love the space analogies. I'm going to go off into like total tangent now. We might never return, but I think it's inspiring to see the willingness to, we'll call it experiment, but like just know that I don't have all the answers on such a grand scale, right? Like I'm going to try to put a rocket off this pad and see if it can land back on the pad. And how many are we going to blow up, right? And yeah. I mean, with reference to NASA, there's a lot of really fascinating history, right? If you go back to the 60s and 70s and look at, the Apollo program and stuff like that, where they did some pretty audacious things. And, people were signed up because they believed in the mission and they were willing to accept, that it wasn't always going to work, but it was worth it to push something forward. And
that belief, I jump in. That belief is so key, not only for yourself, but for their teammates, that you believe that it is possible. Mm-hmm. And so often it's funny when you see it's possible, everyone runs at it, mm-hmm. right? And then they all can figure it out. But the belief that you could do it, that to say, we're going to put someone on the moon by 1969, this massive rocket, this massive explosive rocket, and put humans on the moon. I mean, it's audacious, right? Mm-hmm. But someone believed it was possible.
Right. Absolutely. And, you talked about constraints and saying, well, we don't have whatever, this can't be done. This is what limits us or whatever. And one of the examples of constraints that I often use, and it's probably the Hollywoodized version of it, is the Apollo 13 scrubber, right? Where it's basically like, you have these 7 objects and you need to figure out how to fix this problem. Like we're not putting someone else up there with the, with the emergency kit or whatever. Like we have what we have, right? We have S3, EC2, and whatever other tools. And we're going to build a fast database. Like I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but I mean, in that particular example, it's additionally inspiring because it's like people are going to die if we don't do it. In this case, like, we believe in it. We're going to go pursue that mission. Here are the constraints. Go figure out everything you can possibly figure out because there's probably a way to do this.
No, it's well said. I mean, that moment where I would love to really be in the room, right, when that was happening. I'm estimated the leaders said this is urgent, but they calmed down. They slowed down time. Mm-hmm. They didn't add stress. They said, hey, we have a problem. Let's work together. Everyone in this room is brilliant. We believe in you. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Where, sometimes you have leaders where they're like, why is it not working? Or, why is it not done now? And then all of a sudden that creativity, that problem solving ability starts to, shrink. And so I think, to be able to be creative and insightful, it does create a community, an environment of possible. And I'm sure you worked at companies where it's stagnant. They're like, no, we can't do that. That's impossible. I love as a young professional, as an engineer, when someone said it was impossible in my 20s, I went at it. I couldn't help myself to go see if it was possible because I like that kind of challenges. Yeah. But what I have learned over the years that literally nothing's impossible. Now, sometimes things take time. You have to find people that are willing to go for it. But, when I turned on our engine and saw what we could do on cloud storage, pure cloud storage. Again, everyone thought it was impossible, but the math said it should work if you tried. And I think it was like, but Parquet can't do that. Lucene can't do that. Or Elastic can't do that. Or Snowflake hasn't done that yet. Or whatever it is. Sure, that's fair. They haven't chosen that path. But if you just do the math, it should work. When we put people on the moon, the math said it should work. Now there's high risk, lots of dollars spent. But what an amazing and brilliant people, right? Of all walks of life, all teams, all talents, put together this massive machine that is inspiring. And that's why anyone who's going to space or transforming cloud storage into a high performance analytic database, has to be a little bit crazy, but also engineering minded, right?
Right. Yeah. So many things to unpack in there. The thing that I want to take away and make sure everyone heard was, you're all brilliant people. We believe in you. Like that, under pressure, leaders showing up saying, don't you understand how important this is? Why are you not working faster? Is the best way to slow everything down and basically prevent success, versus like, what do you need? Because I'm going to get out of your way and block everyone else from getting in your way so that you can solve this really hard problem that you were equipped to solve, and collaborate with the people around you freely to solve that problem. I think it's just so, like, it can't be missed. It can't be missed. I'm gonna make sure that everyone leaves with that point. And if you're listening to this and you're not a leader, like, demand that of your leaders. If you're listening to us and you are a leader, demand it of yourself. So I'm sure there's plenty of them, but I'm going to transition into the Red Build Rewind. Like, tell us a story. Tell me about a time that something, you tried something and maybe it felt catastrophic in the moment, although it seems like you're fairly familiar or fairly comfortable at this point with, things not going to plan. But
let me not change the question, because that's unfair. But, everything that I do feels like it could fail. I know I've been pushing the envelope of multiple types of technologies and architectures. And, you ask people, investors, to invest in you in these ideas. And there's always that moment right before you, let's call it, turn it on. What if it doesn't work? Right. And I would say that I had never had like this, epic failure moment where it's like you had this viewpoint, because it's been a life journey of incremental changes and philosophy to get to the bigger and bigger idea. Now, I could be honest, if I said, I'm right out of school and I have this big idea with no experience, let's go for it, I think that might turn into an epic failure. But, it was a slow progression into insights and through what to build, how to build it. But it always feels the same to the question. It feels like, what if this doesn't happen? And the money invested, the time, people's lives, careers invested in an idea. I know for me, like the chaos scenario, now this is years ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, where I turned on the engine, the distributed engine on cloud storage. And I'm like, this better work. This better do what I thought it was going to do. And it did. It was actually faster than I expected. It was on a weekend, and I asked my wife, hey, let's go for a walk down the Charles. And I turned to her, I said, I think I'm not going to get in trouble. I think this is going to work. And but it feels so risky until it seems so obvious. And then now we take it for granted of what we're doing. But so I would say it's never been catastrophic, although it's felt up to that moment till it works that this could be dangerous. I'm sure when they were putting, the Apollo mission to the moon, I bet you they were all feeling stressed as hell, right? If it didn't work.
Well, I mean, there were famous events that did not work. Amazing, again, like taking that extreme that they kept going, and more people were like, "Yep, strap me to that thing. Like, I believe in this mission. We have to do this." I will just say they have a different mentality about certain things that I do. I don't know how to, I mean, they're like test pilots. They flew around in jets that were likely to crash at any moment. I mean, it's a certain style of person for sure. But to your point, like it's them plus all of the engineers, working in the back, all the people planning, the administration, the people negotiating with the government. Like it's so much happening because people have the space to do it. and because they have the belief from the people around them that they can achieve it. I'm trying to digest more of that, like that moment before you turn it. I'm trying to think of a few of those, but that
No,
feeling, right? Is there
it's
anything that you've developed to help you with that feeling? That's like,
yes. I've learned. I've learned a lot. Right now, I'm getting older in age, but actually, gray hairs help. People believe you more often when you're older than when you're younger. But it's time spent, right? I don't know if you ever read the book Outliers, where it's the 10,000-hour person becomes a great violinist. I do believe in that. I do believe experience and time, education, all of it brings together insights and beliefs and knowledge. And so, to me, you really are so confident. Like if you talk to the great physicists of the world, not that I talk to great physicists, but they knew it when they felt it. They said, this was going to work. And when they get interviewed, did you question whether it was going to work or not? And they said, absolutely not. I was just waiting for everyone else to believe it was true. Like the double helix, I'm sure Einstein, when he when he thought of those thoughts, he's like, this is it. Now he's got to convince everybody.
right.
It's kind of like that, but you're also fearful. You're fearful, like going, what if I'm epically wrong? And shoot, Einstein was right and wrong multiple times, but his vision of getting there was I think what made it work right over time, because he made some predictions that weren't right, and then he made some changes and they were right. So to me, how much do you want to go out there, put your neck out there and say, I'm taking this risk? Because, you get your head chopped off if it doesn't plan out, right? But I love being that space where it's funny, you can find a crew of people that love being that space with you. And it is so enjoyable to work with really bright people that love to push it with you. And you learn faster when you're with a group of people. It's an amazing thing, particularly in those moments.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And the analogies are fascinating to me because earlier when you were talking about heading down the path of Chaos Search, your comment was the math works. And I feel like so much of our understanding of the universe has come from, well, the math works, so this has to be true, which is a really interesting, like, as someone who thinks a lot about physics, it's an interesting way to go about the world. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in your background. Awesome.
But you don't get the Nobel Prize. You don't get the Nobel Prize unless the experiment is proven true.
Yeah.
So, we have to build the product, right, to make sure it actually.
Right. Exactly. But it gives you that intuition that, hey, I'm on a path here because the math is elegant, which is a fascinating thing, I think, about the universe that we live in. Awesome. Well, that got broad pretty quickly, but we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Thomas. This was a ton of fun. Thanks for joining. It's awesome to have you. Everybody that's listening, thanks for listening today. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, subscribe to the podcast on your podcast provider of choice. If you want to hear us talk about something, talk to someone in particular, find us on Twitter at CircleCI. Thomas, awesome having you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Rob, thank you. Enjoyed it.